Hey, sweet friend. As summer starts to wind down, do you feel that pressure creeping in? The school year is coming, the to-do list is growing. There are things that you need to finish, things you meant to do all summer, and maybe even this feeling that you just need to squeeze in just a little bit more fun before summer officially is over. But what if these last couple of weeks don't have to be about doing more? Today, I want to talk about giving yourself permission to put down some of the pressure, to have your own back in decisions you're making, and create a little more space for what may matter most to you right now: connection with yourself, the Father, and your child. Mama, are you tired of meltdowns stealing the peace in your home? Welcome to Parenting Beyond Meltdowns. I'm Amanda, a Christian life coach and a mom of a strong-willed neurospicy teen. If you've tried everything from consequences, parenting books, crying out to the Father, and still feel like you're failing, you're not alone. Inside this podcast, we'll explore how faith, emotional regulation, and connection work together so that you can parent from a place of peace, even in the hardest moments. You don't have to hold it all together here. This is a safe space to lay it all down. Welcome. If you're wanting to go deeper into encouragement like this, join my Insiders list. It's where I share faith-filled reminders, emotional regulation tips, and real-life tools to help you stay anchored in who the Father says you are. The link is in today's show notes. I want to tell you about what happened to me last week because I think there's something here that goes far beyond grading homeschool assignments. I had grading that I needed to finish. I had been putting off a couple of subjects because, let's face it, I would rather make a podcast episode than grade science. I felt like I needed a break, and I really wanted to get my grading caught up before we started the new school year. We run pretty much year-round with breaks in between when needed. If you've been here for a while, you know that I'm coming up on our 1-year anniversary of Parenting Beyond Meltdowns next week. I had this goal in my mind that I wanted to consistently create new episodes for an entire year before I took a break. So I was feeling conflicted. Part of my brain was saying, you have to make a new episode. You've come so far. You can't stop now. But another part of me was saying, Amanda, you're tired. You have things that need your attention. You need some space. And I finally made a decision. I gave myself permission to not create a new podcast episode last week unless I had capacity for it. I decided that if I needed to, I could bring back an older episode and let that be enough. And then I decided that I wasn't going to make that decision mean anything good or bad about me. It didn't mean that I wasn't consistent. It didn't erase all of the work that I had accomplished so far. And it didn't mean that I had failed. I was simply deciding what I needed and then having my own back with that decision. And you know what happened? I stopped carrying the mental pressure of trying to do everything at once. I sat down Monday and Tuesday and focused on what was in front of me. And I got all of the grading done. And then Wednesday came. And there was space to create a new episode. And I actually tried to. It's the episode that you're listening to right now. But I still didn't feel like my head was in the game. I felt like I just needed a break. And so I gave myself permission to put this episode off until this week. And that's what I did. Sometimes giving ourselves permission not to do something creates the very space we need to get what we wanted done. And that's how it usually works for me. But last week, I just decided that it was okay for me to take a week off of creating a new episode. All of this made me think about you. It made me think about these last couple of weeks of summer and how easy it is for us to carry so many expectations. That we need to get ready for school, fix sleeping schedules, organize all the things, that we should probably do one more fun summer thing. Having thoughts like I didn't do half the things that I wanted to, and underneath all of that, this quiet pressure of there isn't enough time. Mama, what if you don't have to squeeze everything in? What if these last days of summer could hold a little less pressure and a little more connection? Our first teaching point today is I want you to decide what matters most to you in this season and then have your own back. I was recently talking with a coaching client about this idea of making a decision and then having your own back, because sometimes the hardest part isn't actually making the decision, it's what we do to ourselves afterwards. We decide we need rest and then we feel guilty for resting. We decide not to attend something and then we spend the whole day wondering if we should have gone. We decide to let something go and then criticize ourselves for not doing enough. Mama, you are allowed to make a decision without putting yourself on trial afterwards. And I think this matters in our parenting too. Maybe you decide that these last couple weeks of summer aren't going to be about squeezing everything in. The summer bucket list doesn't have to get finished. You decide one afternoon that everyone needs to stay inside instead of going on another outing. Or if you've been inside all summer, maybe you decide to go out and do have an outing and spend time together. If your child is dysregulated, you have permission to change your mind. No matter what, you get to decide what serves your family best in this season. And then you get to decide to have your own back. You don't have to turn every decision into evidence that you're doing something wrong. Sometimes emotional regulation looks like trusting yourself enough to say, this is what we need right now, and that be enough. Point 2, your child may need connection more than another experience. There can be so much pressure at the end of summer to make it count. One more trip, one more outing, one more special memory. And there is absolutely nothing wrong with doing those things, but connection doesn't require a reservation. It doesn't require money, and it definitely doesn't require an Instagram-worthy experience. Sometimes connection looks incredibly ordinary, sitting beside your child while they show you something that they care about, watching a movie together, going outside after dinner, playing a game, letting them talk about something that you don't completely understand, but listening anyways. Maybe it is getting ice cream. Maybe it's lying on the couch doing absolutely nothing together. It might look like spending time in the Word or listening to worship music. Our kids deeply desire connection. They may not always look like they want it. Our littles might not know how to communicate it yet. And your teenager may not walk into the room announcing, "Mother, I would like some healthy attachment and emotional connection with you now." That would make it easier, wouldn't it, if they did that? Connection is a basic human need. And sometimes when we focus so heavily on behavior, stop doing that, get your shoes on, clean this mess up, why do I have to ask you 5 times? Our relationship can slowly become centered around correction. I just realized yesterday that I had strayed away from connection with my son. Less hugs, less I love yous, and more of, have you done this yet? I noticed my son coming and seeking out connection with a hug or just sitting in the same room as I work to be near me. Now, as we head into the school year and the number of demands naturally increase, like wake up, get dressed, get in the car, do your schoolwork, finish homework, do your chores, go to bed. So maybe before all of those have-tos begin again, we can intentionally make a little more room to simply be together. Point number 3, connection often creates safety where behavior can begin to shift. I want to be careful here because I don't want you to hear me say that if you connect with your child enough, that then they'll behave. That's not what I'm saying. Connection is not a behavior management trick. We don't connect with our child as a transaction. I gave you 10 minutes of special time and now you owe me cooperation. No. But behavior is communication. And when our child feels disconnected, misunderstood, emotionally unsafe, overwhelmed, or dysregulated, we often see that communication through their behavior. It can look like meltdowns, shutting down, resistance. Building connection helps create relational safety. And when there is more safety, there is often more capacity. Not necessarily immediately. This takes time, but instead of asking only, how do I get this behavior to stop? What if we also asked, what does our relationship need right now? That question changes the way that we enter the moment, because now we're not standing across from our child trying to control them. We're coming alongside them with curiosity. And mama, boundaries still matter. Expectations still matter. Connection does not mean that your child gets whatever they want. It means that the relationship remains important even when the answer is no. And what I've personally found is that when I have initiated with connection, that they can handle the no's better. And if they don't, and there ends up being an issue, we come back and repair when everyone is more regulated. Point number 4, connection with your child begins with making space inside yourself. This is where I want to bring us back to my story from this week. I had time to connect with myself first. I had to notice that I was tired, that I was feeling pressure, that I was carrying an expectation that I had to do everything. Then I had to decide what I needed. And instead of arguing with myself about it, I gave myself permission, and that created space. And I think sometimes we try so hard to give our children grace that we forget that we need to practice grace towards ourselves too. Because when you're running from one obligation to another, when your brain is carrying 17 open tabs, when you're thinking about school supplies and schedules and grading and appointments and everything that needs to happen before fall, it becomes much harder to be present. You may physically be sitting beside your child while mentally being somewhere completely different. So maybe building connection these last couple of weeks of summer doesn't start with asking, what special thing should I do with my child? Maybe it starts with, what pressure can I put down? Because sometimes putting something down creates room to pick something more important up. Maybe that's exactly what your family needs before the pace changes again. Not more, but more room. Room to breathe, to notice each other, to laugh. Room for your child to come sit beside you without immediately needing them to do something or asking them, what do you want? I'm so guilty of that question. Room to simply enjoy who they are. I keep thinking about the story of Mary and Martha in Luke 10. Martha's just busy doing, and Jesus wasn't condemning her for serving. The problem was that she had become worried and distracted by many things. He talks about this in Luke 10:41, and he says, Martha, Martha, the Lord answered, you are worried and upset about many things, but few things are needed, or indeed only one. Mama, there will always be another thing to do. I promise you, the laundry is remarkably committed to its ministry of returning every day. The school year will come, the lists will refill. There will be schedules and responsibilities and things that genuinely need to get done. But we can become so distracted by all of those things that need our attention that we miss the people right in front of us. And I don't think that the invitation here is to abandon our responsibilities. I think it's to become more intentional about what we're choosing in this moment. To ask the Father, what matters right now? And then to trust Him enough to choose it. Your micro shift this week is super simple. I want you to ask yourself these two questions. What is one thing that I can give myself permission to put down this week? And what is one simple way that I can use that space to connect with my child? Maybe you leave one thing undone and sit outside together. Or you put your phone away for 20 minutes and you let your child choose what you do. Instead of squeezing in another elaborate summer activity, order pizza and have a movie night. Maybe you simply sit beside your child and say, hey, we have a little bit of summer left. Is there something simple that you'd really love for us to do together? And then listen. This isn't another thing to add to your list. That's the whole point. Put something down first. Create the space and see what grows. Mama, if today's episode had you thinking this is exactly where I'm at, I want you to know something. You don't have to figure this all out on your own. Sometimes what we need most isn't another parenting strategy. We need someone to walk alongside us, help us untangle what's keeping us stuck, and remind us of what's true when life feels overwhelming. And that's why I created my 12-week Anchored Mama coaching journey. Over 12 weeks, we'll work together to help you regulate your emotions, renew your mind through God's truth, and rebuild connection with your child one faithful step at a time. And because I know life doesn't only happen on our coaching calls, reserve your August coaching journey. By Friday, I'll also include anchor support between our sessions so that you can have encouragement through these hard moments as they come. If you've been wondering whether coaching is the right next step for you, I'd love to invite you to learn more. You can find the link in today's show notes or head over to amandacalfee.com/coaching. Hey, sweet mama, I hope you loved today's episode. Can you do me a favor? If this episode spoke to your heart, would you take 30 seconds and share it with a mama in your life who needs to know they are not alone? Also, would you leave a quick review on Apple Podcasts for me? It blesses my heart to know that this show is giving you hope in hard moments. All right, I'm off to grab some protein because love and grace flows easier when you're not just running on fumes and coffee. I'll meet you back here next week for another honest and hope-filled conversation. In the meantime, mama, stay rooted in faith and anchored in love.